chuckle in it. I'm a reenactor. And for 36 years, I used the tricks of historical reenactment to bring the subject of history to life for my students in the classroom. And to do that, I'd wear the garb for the time period, and I'd bring in all sorts of stuff for them to handle, and made it a touchable museum. And I'd have the music going in the background, to anything to make it more tangible for them, to make the subject more real. Well, I'm not in the classroom anymore, so I've had to find things to do. For instance, ways to use this garb, which fills a room at the house, and I've got to try to channel my passion for bringing the past to life. And I already am in historical reenactment organizations, but that's not quite enough for me. So what I've been doing is I've been taking a deep dive into a subject area that I really wasn't able to teach because it wasn't part of my curriculum, and that's California history. So I started at one of the first places that came to mind, the missions and the assistencias and the presidios. So I visited each of those places, and I told the stories of these various places through an anthropologist's point of view and through a history geek's point of view. And I'm doing this in garb to kind of show the progression of events. And then when I ran out of mission stuff, I realized I had Russian California to deal with. And hey, that kind of fit with the missions. So I did the same thing. And then while researching the missions, one in particular, I saw mention of a bar or a saloon in a mission. And then I realized that wasn't necessarily an uncommon thing. And that there were bandits or outlaws that ran into it, or that frequented these places. And then I started wondering, did these guys ever meet? And that just got me digging into more and more stuff, and tugging on the threads of history. And what ended up happening is now I went from my mission odyssey to, let's see, the long time version of the title is Chasing Bandidos and Lawmen, but I've shortened it to Chasing Bandidos. And so I've been researching the various folks who made California such a lawless and dangerous place. Well, right now I'm on the trail of a guy named Procopio, and he's sort of my nod to the idea of a genealogy of outlaws, because apparently he was the nephew of Joaquín Murrieta, who is supposed to be like the poster child for really bad, outlaws in California. And I'm just on his trail, so trying to track him down. I hope you stick with me on my journey. So, chasing after Procopio and his legend. It ended up serving as a reminder to me of why I've been doing this series of projects, of documenting the missions and documenting the careers of California bandidos. You hear a lot of traffic in the background. That can't be helped. I'm at a very noisy intersection, Foothill and Vineyard in Rancho Cucamonga. I've lived in this area for decades, for most of my life. I've driven past this intersection a bunch of times, and I've seen a winery here. I never stopped. And then I started researching the Bandidos, and that turned into researching Procopio, and then I realized he got his career start here. So, got to tell the story of here and its origins. Rancho Cucamonga was established by Mission San Gabriel as a ranch station to help support the mission. Well, the missions got secularized. And in 1839, Governor Juan Bautista Alvarado gave Tiburcio Tapia Rancho Cucamonga, 13,000 acres of land. And Tapia immediately moves his cattle here, and he builds a large fort like Adobe, which, by the way, is gone now. Now there's just a plaque. And he also started planting grapevines, and that's going to lead to the first commercial winery in California. So there's Tiburcio's story. In 1858, John Raines ended up purchasing Rancho Cucamonga from the daughter of Tiburcio Tapia, who had already passed. And he built a house over on Hemlock, maybe a quarter of a mile away from the winery. He added about 150 acres of grapevines. So the vineyard is prospering. By the way, he's really wealthy. Not only has he got Rancho Cucamonga, but he married Maria Merced Williams, whose dad owned Rancho Santa Ana del Chino, and her grandfather owned Rancho San Bernardino. So now he's got these three ranchos to deal with. And he's also invested in the Bella Union Hotel in Los Angeles. But he's going to be hit pretty hard financially. In the early 60s, not only were there devastating floods, but there was also a couple of good solid years of a nasty drought, which was all over California. And all those cattle that people were raising on the ranches, they're dropping like flies. There was a description that one could walk across the Central Valley just by walking on the bones of the cattle. So Raines is not doing so good, and he's going to have to borrow money left and right and mortgage the rancho. It's just not going good for him. And in November of 1862, he takes a trip to Los Angeles. He's going to go along the main road, which today we would call Arrow Highway. Basically, that ran from the former Asistencia San Bernardino, past the San Gabriel Mission, and into Los Angeles. Well, his body is discovered in San Dimas, several hundred yards off the road, and it's really mangled. And according to the primitive autopsies of the time, it looked like he had been dragged off of his carriage by a rope that Californios would favor. This is where Procopio steps on stage. There's a whole bunch of conflicting information about Procopio. The early stuff, not so much. His parents were from Mexico. He was apparently born in Mexico. His father was a vaquero and taught him to trade. So he took to horses real early in life. His mom was reputedly the older sister or an older sister of Joaquín Murrieta, but there's also some doubts there. He is supposed to have come to the United States in a couple of different ways. One version is his father was killed by Indians, and so Joaquín Murrieta, his uncle, brought them to California in like 1852. And there's another version that says no, his parents moved with him to Los Angeles County in 1853, which incidentally is the year that Joaquín Murrieta died. So there's a lot of conflict here. Oh, also his names. There's They're numerous, and it depends upon which wanted poster you look at. He could be Tomas Procopio Bustamante. He could be Procopio Murrieta. He could be Tomas Rendendo. Let's see, he was also known as Red Bebito, or Red-Handed Dick, or Red Dick. And some of that, one version says, oh, it's because he had red hair. The photos I've seen are black and white, so I can't tell. Another version says, no, that was because of his bloodthirsty temperament, the fact that he was violent. There's also conflict about whether he killed or not. Supposedly he didn't, although I found evidence that he did. And he was aided by a number of Californios to evade the law and viewed as another Zorro figure. So we have another one to deal with. Okay, so here's where Procopio enters the story. John Raines has driven towards Los Angeles, and he's murdered in San Dimas, or what's going to become San Dimas. And what ends up happening is there's a guy named Miguel Cerrado who gets caught in something else, and he's feverish from smallpox, which must have made him real popular to talk to. And he said that rival ranchero to Raines, a man named Ramon Carrillo, paid him, Procopio, and 3 others $500 to murder Raines. Well, others are picked up for questioning, and in the meantime, Cerrado is being sent north by ship over to San Francisco. Well, when he's on the docks, a lynch mob gets a hold of him, and they lynch him, which is what a lynch mob does, and then they threw his body in the water. Well, apparently there's not enough evidence to convict Procopio and the others, so they're let go. Oh, by the way, Ramon Carrillo, a few months later, he is found dead on the road to Los Angeles, along that same stretch of road where Raines met his end. Well, I got too much stuff on Procopio to put into just one video, so I'm gonna revisit this person, revisit his trail, and I hope you stick with me.